everyone. Thanks for joining me for another podcast episode by CSM Practice, where we bring you the best strategies, tactical advice, frameworks that work. And we have Josh Vogel again. Josh, congratulations. You just found a new job.
Yeah, podcast.
Since we last spoke, we just released a video of his. You got to watch it. It's pretty awesome. But I had to bring him again because as we were talking back then, he had mentioned something that actually happens a lot, not just with smaller software companies, but also larger ones. Josh, maybe you could frame it for our listeners. What is the scenario you found yourself in that was a little bit challenging and you said, whoop, I need to solve this? We don't need to go to the solution, but just give us some context.
I was relatively new to my organization and I didn't know it, but I was walking into a very big product release to our customers. And with that product release was also this new pricing structure and way we were going to position our products and services. What I also learned in that process was pretty quickly that we didn't really have this great, robust way to release products within our product team. We were a relatively small organization. So I had to kind of take a step back and ask myself, hey, how do I make this work for my customer success team and for my customers, but not become this de facto product manager? So I thought about how can I make this work from the perspective of a CSM and get the things that we need out of it to make a successful launch for our customers.
You think if you didn't step back and actually thought about a framework or a process for that, what do you think the worst thing that could have happened?
The worst thing that could have happened is probably the thing that had happened in the past. I had heard horror stories from the CSMs who were there prior to my arrival. Things get released, it works for some, it doesn't work for others, and it just becomes this unhealthy reactive cluster for potentially 2 to 3 months while we then iron out all the issues and figure out what's going on. But in that time, you're losing trust from your customers, you're losing your customers' confidence in your product, and then you have people questioning whether or not they want to renew. So that was definitely something I wanted to avoid moving forward.
You came up with the framework and the strategy, and this time around, what were the results? What was the difference in the experience for the CSM team, for the customers teams? Before we go into what you did, maybe you could tell us, like, why should anybody listen?
What we enabled ourselves to do was take a more strategic approach to engaging our customers with our new product, which gave our CSMs way more confidence. They weren't, hey, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure what it's about. I don't know how it's going to impact customers. I gave them a lot more control and a lot more confidence in how to proactively engage customers from day one, which was helpful. And then we saw through this a stronger CS and product alignment where we actually saw product and customer success start to work a lot more closely together. We were brought in a few meetings. We figured out how to tie customer feedback into our product feedback portal, which was exciting. Even our customers who had caught wind that we were coming out with this new product and service, they were a little wary, but we were able to drive trust and satisfaction by actually owning the outcome with the customer and saw our customer satisfaction drive up by over 10% during the time that we had released this thing, which traditionally we had seen CSAT struggle, but this time we saw it grow during the release, which was great. And then this helped us in a lot of ways shift CS from support and putting out fires to becoming a bona fide growth engine within our organization. We were actually able to drive new recurring revenue and drive some great upsell.
I'm all gog for what have transpired and what the heck, how did you do this?
One day at a time.
You mentioned a few things. First, it sounds like you gave your CSMs almost like a script or a playbook on how to approach the announcement and how to teach customers about what is the change. So tell me a little bit about that process.
What we did was with our customers this time around, we actually pushed the release of the product out about 2 months, which was a bit different than what they had done in the past. We want to release yesterday, 5 minutes ago, but I said, hey, let's push it out 2 more months. And what we did is for 2 months, we released it to a few customers in a controlled environment, let them play around and see how they liked it. We continued to pitch it to some new customers who were coming in. And then we also created this great campaign with our marketing team that was kind of talking up this new product release and the capability and the features it was going to bring to your business, particularly for businesses who were looking to expand or grow. So there was a lot of customer-centric planning. And with that, as you mentioned, came some talk tracks and a few playbooks on how to navigate those conversations with customers as we did our best to anticipate where the pushback might be or where the initial questions might exist based off of our controlled test group and from what we knew about our product and services and what we know our customers were already saying.
Okay, so I'm hearing a couple of things. A controlled test group, instead of launching immediately. I guess it was a significant release. A campaign planned with the marketing team to zhuzh it up, to actually have some sort of appeal, think through this. What is the benefit for the customer? And promote it like you would promote a new deal, a new product. So create some momentum, I suppose. And then I hear enablement for the team, and objection handling, almost like a cheat sheet, is one of those enablement materials. So where should we start? Maybe tell me a little bit about the pilot. I always say a pilot is like such a killer process for change management, such an important element. And I always get a little giddy when I hear somebody do that and they get success. So how did you pick the right clients?
One of the great things about golf was they've been around for 20 years. So we have some customers who were fiercely loyal to About Golf, and they had grown through all the ebbs and flows and changes and the up and downs of the organization and gone through the last 20 years. So in this particular case, we had about 10 customers that we could reach out to who we knew and were open to working through kinks and giving us feedback, all while knowing that we're not jeopardizing a churned customer. We're not going to churn on our recurring revenue. We're not going to churn on logo. They're truly going to be champions of our new products and services, and we can rely on them to give us solid feedback. And what we focused on for this one in particular was, how are we positioning this new product and service with our customer in a way that actually resonates with them? Because we knew why we wanted to do it, but how were the customers going to perceive it? Because I think initially it might have looked like just another way to get some more money out of your customers, something along those lines. But it's a way to figure out what verbiage are we going to use that resonates with other business owners, where it actually makes sense to them. That's where we spend a lot of our time, is building up those talk tracks. We know what the product and service is, but now let's rewrite these bullet points to sound less like a sales tactic and more like a problem that we're solving for the customer.
How many customers did you pick? And did you end up saying about one of them at least, gosh, I wish they weren't in this pilot?
I think it was about 10 customers. Some of them we had been in the deal cycle with for some time. A handful of them were also new customers. And then there's about 5 that were long-term existing customers. So I think it came up to about 10 altogether. The people who were new, they were excited because they felt like they were a part of developing a product and service that was going to be well fit for them. Our customers that were new, they were helping us with a perspective that we might actually be able to restructure their deal to actually be of better use to them, better utility to them. And then for our existing customers, that's where I was happy to have them. But there was one customer in particular, very, very business savvy. This gentleman was a very successful businessman in a past life. He was running a smaller organization, and he had such an analytical mind, and the way he looked at it was a very mature way to look at it. So he clearly came from a very mature tech organization, and he was just picking apart everything we had in our products and services and how we were presenting it. And at the end of the day, we spent weeks, months, hours, day over day, kind of doing this tense back and forth, trying to figure out, how do we make it appealing to someone like this? At the end of the day, we do recognize that he is a bit of a one-off type customer, but we also took it as a challenge as CSMs. If we can convince this person that this is good for their business, then anyone else is going to seem like a walk in the park, because this guy is pressure testing us from every angle possible.
Say another angle to look at that. And sometimes you pick the wrong customer to be in a pilot. I mean, they do give a lot of great feedback, but maybe they're not the ICP for that feature. I feel like when a customer is complaining a lot, but everybody else seems fine with it, it just means that, maybe this is not for you. And we're not going to drag our entire product team to specifically make it for you just because you're an outlier. And
Yes.
so we need to watch out for that. And I bet, like, next time, I think if this happens, my only 2 cents here is that push back and just say, you know what, maybe this is not the right fit for this pilot. Thank you so much. We'll contact you on the next version when we have something more mature. Goodbye.
I agree. In this particular case, they ended up actually moving forward with a new product and service that we offered, which was great. But even then, I had my reservations about whether or not they were the right type of customer for the product. And as you can imagine, the feedback did not slow down even after implementation.
I'm not saying you need to churn the client, by the way, if anybody's listening. I'm just saying for this pilot, he might not have been a good fit. And you can't know that until you start that. And so if it feels like, okay, this is not helpful. It's distracting almost, just takes all of our energy. It's
Yeah.
cannibalizing what we're trying to do. And just have a talk track, just put him on the side and say, hey, look, let's get you on the next beta program because we feel like this is still too premature for what we're trying to do right now.
And to kind of build on to what you said, that's essentially what we kind of got from our testing was this product was going to be very, very hard to position and make sense with our customers who had our product services for more than 6 months, for customers who still had 6 months or more on their existing contract. This product and service, the way it was packaged, was great for someone who had just bought in, who still had some time to maybe change or modify their facilities to meet the new capability or the new equipment they can take on board. And then also customers who were at the tail end of their current life cycle and were ready for an overhaul. So everyone in the middle, they were really hard, wasn't broken, didn't need to get fixed. Everything was working as is. Hard to convince those type of customers to inject any more cash into their business. They're just trying to make it to the end of their years or to the end of their contract and then reinvest.
Which brings me to the next thing that you've done is working with marketing on figuring out the ICP, the ideal customer profile for this specific version, how to position it, how to basically sell it to the existing customers. So maybe you could share a little bit, what was that interaction like from a customer success perspective? How did you collaborate with the marketing team? I bet those 10 clients provided a lot of good stories and feedback to feed into the marketing team so that they could create that marketing campaign.
So one of the things that we wanted to get out of this was ensuring that our messaging was aligned with real use cases or use cases that made sense or would likely come to fruition. And it was a combination of the testing, yes, but something that we leading up to this was a couple years of customer feedback. It wasn't aggregated very well, so I did have to kind of collect it all and put it in one spot, but that also helped us understand where our customers were coming from. And we kind of assessed that our customers are kind of in a delicate state right now. And we knew that we were going to have troubles with customers who had been with us for some time that weren't anywhere near contract renewals and or already embedded in their current contract because we had some trust issues that we need to work out. We had some issues with support, not following up in time, and a few other things that we had to get under hand before we can talk about upsell. So that first and foremost helped us narrow down our ideal customer profile right out the gate. And then from there, we had to look at organization sizes. If they were, for example, in amenity space, they would have one simulator in their facility, and they were probably only going to ever have one in their facility. That's all they needed. That's all they had room for. We had to look at other locations who had expressed interest in expanding and or had room within their facilities to take on a few more simulators. Those are the type of customers that we'd likely be wanting to speak to.
So once you define the ICP, how did the collaboration with marketing went along throughout these 2 months?
It was pretty intense because I think at this point there wasn't the set communication matrix between customer success and marketing. What we did is we sat down and we shared our feedback with the marketing team. The marketing team at the time did have a bit of a jump on us because they had already gotten a lot of the collateral and content ahead of time. It was pretty bang on. So what we did is we worked with them and say, hey, we understand that this is great for new customers or what you're going to push out through our advertising, but let's rethink about how we word some of these things, pushing out to some of our existing customers. And let's focus on these customers in that tail end or the initial contract period that makes sense. So for example, with our customers who within their first 6 months, they're new customers, they're excited, they're still in a lot of ways in the building phases of their businesses. They haven't even brought any of our equipment in because they're still getting their buildings up to code and ready to launch and get their doors open, get their liquor license, et cetera. So the way you speak to that customer who's probably very busy, overwhelmed, they're trying to figure out how to meet fire code requirements and they've never done it before because they're running their own shop now. How do you speak to them? And this is how we gauge we should speak to them versus what we noticed that resonate well to feedback from the marketing team was very different than how you would speak to a customer who's in the last 6 months of their contract. They have 2.5 years of experience with us, maybe because we did 3-year contracts. How are we making sure that we're positioning this product in a way that makes sense to the customer, but also make sure we're proactively addressing and owning some of the issues and mistakes we may have made in those last 2.5 years to let them know, hey, things will be different this time. we've got this new product and services that help solve a lot of your problems. We worked with our marketing team to structure those different channels of communication to those two different types of customers that we were targeting. And that was the most interesting part that we worked out with them. And that resulted in a lot of email campaigns, some of our targeted marketing ads that went out to existing customers, reshaped in a lot of ways. I think at that point, it was kind of one message, one size fits all. But at that point, we established that there was actually three different voices that we had here for three different types of customers.
It sounds like you came up with the right channels, the right language for two different types of customers that were good for this new release. How did that then translate to you supporting the CSMs in having this language, being comfortable talking to customers? What have you done and when did you start working on it? Is it midway through the pilot and what did you do?
As quickly as we could. So at first it was just gathering as much information as possible. At first it was still being put together, which was a bit frustrating. You have the CSM team. They're about to get something that we feel is a game changer. It's going to change the conversation with customers, and we're kind of just frothing at the mouth, waiting for something. So I pushed for us to get the information. Once we got the information, I did a few things. So we set up a few meetings with our product and engineering team, and we worked with them to provide us some training. They give us some great training that walk through it. This isn't the type of the training that you'd give a customer, but this is definitely the type of training that a CSM who's familiar with our tools would want to sit through and ask a lot of questions on. And what we did is in that training, we also brought along our marketing team. It was from that training that we tried to understand how do we turn this into digestible content for our CSMs. And then once our CSMs get a good grip on it, how are we then turning this into digestible content for our customers? So there was a lot of focus on internal enablement leading up to the release and during the A/B testing that we were doing with our customers to understand what we were talking about. The customers helped us understand the objection handling and how we're going to strategize around that. I think that was one of the biggest concerns is a lot of our CSMs kind of knew some of our customers. And this was before we decided or learned that what our ideal customer was. We started training before that. The first breakout moment was like, they're going to freak out. They're not going to like this. They're going to be so mad at us. And we had to calm down and say, hey, look, what do we know the objections will be? Why are those objections handling? And did a bit of root cause analysis within our team internally. And that's what initially actually shaped this idea that there is actually a customer that's not very ideal, but there are these customers that might be in a prime position to benefit from this. And that changed the internal team's perspective big time because they went from I'm forcing something down a customer's throat that I know they're not ready for to wait, now I have some folks in my book of business that I think I can have a very targeted conversation with. And even if they don't buy the product or services that we're releasing, it is still worth our time and we'll still have tons to gain from it. So that changed their mentality around it when we did the training and we really identified through our projected objections that we'd be getting from our customers, how to go about it, which gave them a lot of confidence. And then we started building customer facing assets like FAQs, best practice guides, which were at this time still very PDF, a lot of written stuff. We hadn't quite matured to the point of video content just yet at that point, but that followed shortly after. Just doing everything we could to prevent any last minute scrambling and ensuring that our sales team, our product team, and our CSM team were all kind of consistently saying the same thing. I think that was the biggest one for me is consistency across the board. Customers are going to be confused. We cannot be confused. If they're confused and we're confused, that's when the fires start. If we can be the voice of assurance, we'll be in a good place.
Okay, so if somebody's listening here, they're an executive, they know they're going to have a major product release coming up. They get a ton of pressure to do it immediately. Or if you had to go over this again, what are the three things you're absolutely doubling down on next time somebody says, hey, Josh, we're going to have a product release coming up soon. It's going to be a major one.
It's actually five things: customer-centric release planning, segmentation, impact, beta testing, messaging, aligning with use cases. The second thing is going to be proactive internal enablement, where we're making sure that we have FAQs, we're thinking about objection handling strategies, making sure that we have customer assets ready to prevent any last minute scrambling. The third thing is going to be customer communication and change management. So we moved from reactive outreach in the past to a structured multi-touch approach using in-app messaging, direct CSM engagement. We did do demos and champion the activation process to generate momentum. And then the fourth is adoption and value realization. So a new product launch means nothing if customers don't use it. So we definitely focused on key engagement triggers, tracked adoption and metrics, and established feedback loops, which helped us a lot in the short midterm post-launch. Number five is the post-launch follow-up and iteration. So the launch wasn't finished when we launched. The launch was just a starting point after we did all that work, because we had to continuously gather customer feedback and then make sure we were refining our messaging to customers to make sure we're leveraging them the right way, or leveraging our products and services the right way, and getting success stories across the board. What I'll say is, what a lot of that rolled into is customer town hall that we ended up started doing on a monthly basis, just because we realized that once we got more organized and we started pushing out this content to customers in a more digestible way, they wanted more. So we started doing monthly town halls with our customers where we would pick a subject, like one of our tools or one of our services. We would deep dive and we would spend 45 minutes to an hour. You can come show up and ask questions. And if you weren't there, we'd send you out the video afterwards. And we found out that some of our customers started using this for their own staff training. So that was pretty exciting. We would have never gotten there if we didn't have these 5 pillars to help us guide us on this product launch.
So there you go. So there's 5 things you totally recommend and you would totally do next time you have a major product release happening. And I want to reiterate for those who are still listening to this, thank you. Choosing the KPIs for these type of initiatives is important. When you say, yeah, no more, we're not going to do the product release the way we did it before, we're going to change things out, you're taking a risk around your own reputation as a leader. You're going to waste a lot of resources. So thinking about, hey, what were the challenges we had before and what do we want to see again? And you mentioned there were a couple of KPIs. One, what was the customer satisfaction? Did it go up or down? So that means you need to have a baseline of what was the customer satisfaction score in previous releases. Maybe you do or don't have that, or what it is now before we release it versus what it is after we release, so that you could show that uptick. You had a 10% increase. That's important. And I think those are some of the leading indicators. And by the way, just today, I sent out newsletter to my whomever is subscribing. By the way, if you haven't and you're watching this and you want to be part of a community, then you get weekly nudges from me, some things that would inspire you, please subscribe. But I was talking about my old KPI frameworks. It stands for ALL, activity, leading, and lagging indicators. So for your initiative, for example, I like that you actually say, well, did they adopt? Are we seeing an uptick in CSAT? All of those are leading indicators. How many campaigns did we send? What was the open rate? What was the click-through rate? How many conversations did we have with customers? And then lagging indicators. Did we get any upsell? Did we get less churn? Those are kind of like the things that we're expecting a good product release to eventually come into fruition. So if anybody's going through a product release that's coming up, first of all, listen to this video again and take a bunch of notes. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And secondly, if you're not sure about what KPIs to pick when you're dealing with such a big initiative where you change the way you do things, go download my all KPI cheat sheet. It's on my website, csmpractice.com. And let me know if you did something with it. Maybe we can showcase you here on our YouTube channel. Any final word, Josh? Anything else you want to impart on others with regards to this experience?
I just want to add on to what you just said, which is a lot of times we talk about lagging indicators, and lagging indicators are NRR, GRR, a lot of those big ones, churn rate, everyone knows them, but I don't always hear everyone talking so much about our leading indicators. And it was a lot of the leading indicators that we used in this process that helped us win the day, which was adoption rate. One of the huge ones that is a bit of a leading indicator was our support activity. We launched this and we had 50% reduction in post-launch support tickets compared to our last launch, which we took as a testament to, hey, we're keeping our customers informed, our FAQs are working, we're reducing the amount of questions that customers have when they finally do take on a new product and service from us, which is great. So just want to say you hit the nail on the head with that comment, because at the end of the day, it was those leading indicators that made the biggest impact. And we saw the outcomes in our lagging indicators when we saw that huge uptick in our upsell from 2.5 million to 5.4 million in ARR growth. Like I said, when we saw that 50% reduction in post-launch support tickets, we saw a 10% targeted adoption rate. So of all the customers we targeted, we saw 10% of those customers actually buy in and upsell. which led to that huge ARR jump. And then through that quota alignment, we got better performance from our CSMs because we gave them realistic targets for their books of business, which then again gave them even more confidence and gave them a realistic goal to achieve. And it was different per CSM, it wasn't the same. So it was based on which customers do you have in your book of business that fit our ICP. So those leading and lagging indicators were the bread and butter to us capturing and sharing the success of what we had done.
Yeah, and you haven't done the pilot, if you haven't pushed back and say, hey, let's wait 2 months, let's pick 10 customers and see so we can get a better feel for it, it's essentially a shot in the dark. You think that this would be, and you just try to target everyone. So good on you. I think there's a lot of advanced skills here that you applied for this process. Good on you for having the guts to say, no mas, we're going to do this differently and taking a chance with your career almost on the line when you say, hey, everybody's going to do something different. We're going to hold it for 2 months. I bet you got a lot of pushback initial. I don't think that's an easy thing to do, but you did all the right things, and kudos for you. And thank you so much for sharing this. Hopefully this gives some momentum for other teams that are listening. And if you're having some of these challenges that Josh talked about, every time there's a new major product release, take the playbook, see what happens. And with that, it's a wrap. Hopefully we'll see you on the next video. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, go do that. Give it a like, comment below. What was your favorite move by Josh for dealing with these product releases? We'd love to hear from you.